In example 1 of our what is attacked session, we said that after the moves e4, e5, queen h5, we identified the queen is attacking 3 pawns. The pawn on h7, the pawn on f7, and the pawn on e5. And we said that that was it. That was the answer to the question. So now what? What happens after identifying what is attacked? We will cover this question and a lot more in this lab video. Welcome to this lab, Chess Masters. Continuing with the question of identifying what is attacked, we will round up our discussion in this lab video. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Before we start, let me show the recap of the session video. For best results, watch the session if you haven't. Let me start off with example 1 quiz. After e4, e5, queen h5, the queen is attacking 3 pawns. What player has to pay attention to these attacks? Both players must pay attention to these attacks. It is important that each player pays attention to the attacks he's making, but also to the attacks his opponent is making. You cannot play chess well if you only pay attention to attacks you are making and not to your opponents. Both players want to identify what is attacked in a position both ways. Your own attacks as well as your opponents. And you've got to keep that in mind on every move made, because the position changes with every move. It may be the case where you did not see or notice some attacks, or that an attack escaped your eye. And that's part of developing the skill, but missing an attack is very different than not paying attention or neglecting identifying what is attacked. Let me tell you an anecdote. One occasion, the first time I faced this multiple attack move as black, I did ask my opponent what his intention was. He said, "I am trying to checkmate your king." Oh, that makes sense. It was at that point when I realized checkmate was the goal of the game, not capturing pawns. And I realized that my opponent was coming after my f7 pawn, not the e5 pawn. And that his next move was very likely going to be bishop c4, attacking f7 a second time. So now what? What next after queen h5, after identifying the attacks? How should black respond to the attacks? Remember, we can respond to an attack by guarding the attack piece, moving the attack piece to a safe square, capturing the attacking piece, or counterattacking an enemy piece. Let's start with guarding. Since h7 and f7 are guarded and the e5 pawn is unguarded, guarding the e5 pawn takes attention priority over h7 or f7, especially if we don't want to lose the important central pawn. So we may consider moves that guard the e5 pawn, utilizing the guarding capabilities of our army. I will show you the moves that we can play in this position to guard the e5 pawn. Knight c6, a good move because it develops the knight in addition of guarding the pawn. d6, I like this move as well because it guards the pawn and opens the line for our bishop on c8. f6 is an illegal move. We cannot play f6 to guard the pawn because we cannot expose our king to check. Queen e7. This move is not as good, but I like it. It guards the pawn on e5, and it also guards the pawn on f7. In case our opponent happens to play the intended bishop c4, we have already guarded the f7 pawn against checkmate. What other moves can we play to guard the e5 pawn? Bishop d6 or queen f6 are guarding moves. I don't like them. They are weak or bad moves because both of these moves obstruct the development of our pieces. In the case of bishop d6, it blocks the d pawn from advancing, which would open the diagonal for the bishop on c8. And the move queen f6 takes away the best square for developing our king's knight. So those are other two guarding moves, but they are the weak moves in this position. We said another way to respond to an attack was to move the attack piece to a safe square. In this case, in this position, it isn't feasible because the e5 pawn is blocked and cannot move. Another way to respond was capturing the attacking piece, which it isn't feasible in this position. Black can't capture the white queen here. We said another way was counterattacking an enemy piece. In this case, we may consider counterattacking the queen. That's feasible here, however, it isn't safe. And one of the counterattacking options here would actually lose significant material. Knight f6 or g6. Let's have a look at each. What happens after knight f6? We sacrifice the e5 pawn in exchange for getting ahead in development. White would play queen takes e5, and we would block the check with the bishop. And if white develops his bishop to c4, black can attack the white queen again by developing the queen's knight to c6. In this case, what is attacked? The queen is attacked. White can move his queen to a safe square like queen f4. And if you notice in this position, black has developed 3 pieces, whereas white has developed only 2 pieces, one of which is the queen, which we may keep harassing in this position. In this position, according to the engine, the evaluation is equal, even though black is a pawn down. That's interesting. So what else? Another counter-attacking move is playing pawn to g6. However, g6 loses the e5 pawn and also the rook on h8 because the unsafe g6 move left the rook vulnerable and exposed to attack. White wins significant material by playing queen takes pawn e5 check, and simultaneously attacking the unguarded rook on h8. Black has, by the rules of the game, black has to cover or get out of check before guarding the rook. So, you can see g6 is a very unsafe counter-attacking move. Moving on to the solution of the exercises. Exercise 1 solution after e4, e5. What attacking moves white can make? Other than queen h5 or bishop c4, white can play d4 or f4 or knight f3. That is the answer to the exercise question. I want to point out that the moves d4 or f4 create what we call mutual attack because the black pawn can capture the attacking pawn. Unlike knight f3, it is an attack from a distance. It is not a mutual attack. Moving on to exercise 2 question. After e4, e5, bishop c4, knight f6, what is attacked in this position? The f7 pawn is attacked and the e4 pawn is attacked. Both players need to notice that. Moving on to what's the fourth object of attack question. In our session, we said that there was a fourth object of attack, and that is squares. Key or weak squares, relevant squares, can also be attacked or guarded. Moving on to the test position solution. Can white win material? Yes, by making a multiple attack move with queen d1, white wins material. In a chess game, we love to attack unguarded enemy pieces or pawns or key squares. In other words, we love to attack unguarded enemy targets. What if the targets are guarded, you may ask? Then we want to attack that same target again, pile on it if possible, or depending on the situation, attack the guarding piece with the intention of removing its guard. We love attacks that are difficult for the opponent to defend against. We also love multiple attack moves if possible or available, because simultaneous attacks are more difficult to defend against. Now moving on to a lab test position. In this position, it is white to move. What would you play? Based on the kind of attacking moves we said we love, find a move for white in this position, one that would be difficult to defend against. Pause the video and give it a try. Okay, if you found the move, congratulations. If not, don't worry. It takes some experience finding this kind of moves. Queen e4, attacking the rook, as well as attacking the key squares e6, e7, e8 near the black king, is a very powerful move. Now, black is having difficulty in defending against upcoming queen attack on the key square e6, in addition of having to guard its attacked rook on a8. This position shows that a multiple attack move can be more powerful than a check sometimes. I'd like to recommend you watch Grandmaster Irina Krush explaining the Queen e4 move on her video about candidate moves starting at minute 7. The link is in the description. Now moving on to what do you notice in the thumbnail position. This is a problem where white is to move and win. I think you will like this problem. I am using this position to show the relevant things a good player would have noticed in this position. I will mention relevant things for black and then relevant things for white. Did you notice the black rook is attacking the knight? Or notice that black is threatening rook takes knight checkmate? Did you notice that if it were black to move, then rook takes knight would end the game in black's favor? Did you notice that black has almost no moves, legal moves? Or that black only has moves with the rook? Did you notice the rook cannot leave the back rank because of back rank checkmate? Did you notice black could sacrifice his rook on white's back rank and achieve a draw by stalemate? Did you notice white is having a significant material advantage? Did you notice that the queen is attacking the b3 pawn and the key square f8? Did you notice that if white captures the b3 pawn, black could draw this game by sacrificing its rook? Did you notice white has to deal with or address or stop black's checkmate threat? Did you notice white cannot defend, address, or stop the checkmate threat by moving its king? Only by moving its knight or its queen. Did you notice white has a pawn on the 7th rank, d7, a square away from promoting? Did you notice white could take advantage of black's rook lack of mobility or take advantage of black's back rank weakness? Did you notice white has a way of delivering checkmate in this position? We will see how in a second. As you can see, there is a lot to notice in this position. I chose this position for two reasons. One, as your chess knowledge and understanding grows, you should be able to notice these things in your own games. Two, it's possible to discover the solution to this kind of problems by taking to heart the topics we have discussed in this lab. Let's try to solve this problem with whatever we have learned so far. Let us first focus on what is relevant, or that which requires immediate attention. Now you know what that is. By identifying what is attacked, we can notice that the knight on h1 is attacked and unguarded. That means moves like queen e7 do not address the attacked knight. White would lose to rook takes h1 check, and then checkmate. Let us now look at moving the attack piece. Knight f2 or knight g3 moves the attack piece to a safe square. But in this case, black sacrifices his rook and it's a draw by stalemate. If white doesn't want to lose this game, it is forced to take the rook. Otherwise, if it doesn't take the rook and instead covers or blocks the check, black would play rook takes knight, and that would be checkmate. But if doesn't want to lose and takes the rook, this is a stalemate position because there are no legal moves for black, and it would be a draw. A similar situation happens if white plays knight to g3. It gives black an opportunity to play rook h1 check, and now white is forced to take the rook to capture the attacking piece. So we see the knight moves are not helping white in winning in this position. Let us now look at a move that would create a safe square for the white king. Queen takes b3. In this case, black plays rook takes knight check, king a2, and now black can play rook a1, sacrificing the rook. King takes a1 is the only move to get out of check, and again it's a stalemate because black has no legal moves. So now what? How can white win in this position? There is an unbelievable resource white has in this position. White can sacrifice the queen on the key square f8, forcing the rook to move away from attacking the knight. Check. Now black is forced to take the queen, otherwise it is checkmate. Now that the white knight is not attacked, white has an opportunity to move the knight up the board. However, if the knight moves to g3, black has an opportunity to draw the game by sacrificing the rook on f1 check. And white is forced to take this rook, otherwise it would be checkmate. But the moment white takes the rook, it is a stalemate because black has no legal moves. So instead, white moves or jumps with the knight to f2, blocking the line of fire of the rook and stopping it from giving check on f1. Now what? Black has to make a move, but if moves the rook away from the back rank white can promote to queen and deliver checkmate. So black is tied to keep the rook on the back rank to avoid checkmate. One move would be rook h8. Then white plays knight h3, again blocking the line of fire to stop the rook from delivering check on h1. Now black again cannot move the rook away from the back rank, otherwise white promotes queen and delivers checkmate. So black moves the rook back to f8, threatening checkmate on f1. White then plays knight f4. Oh my god! Now rook h8, again blocking. Knight h5, rook f8. And now knight f6. The knight can be captured two different ways, but both ways would lead to checkmate. If black captures with a rook, we already mentioned, that would be checkmate by promoting the pawn to queen. And in this position, if black captures with a pawn, then white can attack the rook with g7. What is attacked? The rook is attacked. If we go up, we lose. The rook has to stay on the back rank, moving the attacked piece to a safe square. Now the amazing king walk up the board to help one of its pawns promote to queen. Unbelievable. Black is defenseless against that plan and we lose the game. In case black takes the knight with the pawn. In this case, black can only make moves with the rook and cannot take on g7 because of the checkmate, promoting to queen. So it has to stay on the back rank, back and forth, while white can bring his king to help the pawn promote. One line can be this, and white wins. I was gonna say, if black attempts to sacrifice his rook by playing something like this, it would be checkmate. So that means when the white knight moved to f6, black has to avoid capturing that knight and just move the rook along the back rank. Let's say rook d8. In this case, white plays knight e8, forcing black to play the only move it can make, rook takes d8, but that loses because white captures the rook, promoting to queen. It is checkmate. And what if black plays rook to h8 instead? In this case, or g8. In this case, white would play pawn to d8, queen. Check. Rook has to take the queen to get out of check. And white can now play knight to d7 check. And to get out of check, black is forced to capture the knight, the attacking piece. By doing so, white then recaptures the rook. And now the situation is such that black has moves available. Pawn to c6 or pawn to c5. Either one loses to d8 equals queen, checkmate. This is an amazing chess problem. I hope you liked it. I recommend you to watch the video where I first saw this problem. The link is in the description. We have now come to the end of the lab. I hope you find it helpful in developing this necessary chess skill. If there is one thing to remember from all of this is, by identifying what is attacked, allows you to find or consider options to appropriately respond to attacks for both sides. With that, I want to thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share with friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. If you are in the US, please visit my Herbalife distributor website to order your favorite Formula 1 nutritional shake mix or herbal tea for a healthier lifestyle. Wish you good luck on your next games and never stop learning. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.